Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports. I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you were doing?
I'm not reading, I'm just looking at the picture. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome all to another great week here in the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. This is the 284th episode of our wonderful show, and a lot more to come. I have an announcement that's going to be coming here in the next couple weeks with some changes on the availability and how and where you can listen and work with the show. We're continuing to try to make improvements and do some things to help move the show along and continue to make it better. We are coming up on... we've been doing the show since 2012. It's now 2019. So in October, we'll be coming up on our 7th year anniversary. So it's pretty amazing. 284 episodes of this show. And we are still moving along. So thank all of you for listening in on Blog Talk Radio, where the show has originated from. So thank you all for listening in there. And thank you to everyone who continues to download the Blog Talk Radio app and listen over on the Spreaker app, and continue to listen over on Spreaker and even our podcasts and everything have been up pretty good over there on Spreaker. If you haven't downloaded the app, it's free. Just go to your app store, download the app for free in your app store, and enjoy the show. So, Kevin should be joining the show here shortly. What is going on with the... bit of an issue here with the sound on... Here, can you guys adjust that? All right. Is that is a little bit better? Okay. Yep. All right. It's coming through better now. All right. Better. All right. The beauties of live radio. So Super Bowl 53 is in the books. I know a lot of people found this game to be incredibly boring. And I know that, not because I polled a bunch of people and said, hey, do you think this game was boring? No. I looked at the television ratings. And this Super Bowl 53 hit a 10-year low for viewership in the game. Now, this was a defensive game. And when you're going into the fourth quarter with a tie of 3-3, those hardcore fans are who's watching. And although the NFL is very evenly spread throughout the country, in cities, large towns, and places of all size, once you take many teams out of it, their participation backs out too. And the Super Bowl really isn't so much what we've always, it's a championship game, but what we know it as sports fans, people that are avid football fans, is one thing, and then what the casual fans see it as is something different. And the Super Bowl has been built up to become one of those games for the casual fan. That's why the Super Bowl commercials are always so heralded. And the halftime show is so heralded. Now, I think just kind of, I'll start with the halftime shows here. I think the creativity in them were a lot to be desired this year. When the NFL 100 is probably the best commercial. Like, if the NFL has the best commercial, good for them. But how much does that say that everybody else needs to step up? I can't say there were many commercials outside of that really stood out in my mind, or thought, yeah, this is a brilliant commercial. And like, the one commercial that people really talked up was Cardi B doing the Pepsi commercial. And it was really ramped up because she decided, because she wasn't going to get to do what she wanted to do in the Super Bowl halftime show, that she was okay being one of the Pepsi girls. Except, in my opinion, and again, not to sell her position short, but she made an appearance in a commercial with a bunch of other people. And you can't even say she was the star of the Pepsi commercials. So, and that's the thing. Because the Pepsi commercial star was Steve Carell. If you go back, because he's in, was it 2 or 3? I know she was in 1, and he was in 2 or 3 of them. And then Bud Light did some lengthened commercials. And then HBO evidently bought in to one where the Mountain wins the javelin contest against the Bud Light Knight, and a dragon flies overhead and people run. Now, if you don't watch Game of Thrones, people that are not Game of Thrones people were probably pretty lost there. Because I read into it. Like, oh, there's their take on Game of Thrones, which oddly took a whole year off. A whole year. Basically. More and more HBO shows are doing that. I like last week tonight with John Oliver. But I swear he takes 6 months off. It's annoying. So annoying on a sports radio show. I have to stop and take time to vent my frustration that a late night TV host takes so much time off. It's a bit ridiculous, if you ask me. I mean, in each season, as they go on, each season gets shorter and shorter. Shorter and shorter. I mean, okay, so I went to look at last week tonight. I mean, here we are. It's what? What's today, the 5th? 4th or the 5th? 5th. February 5th. February 5th, right? John Oliver's last show was November 18th. November 18th. The guy's been off. December, January. I mean, we're literally like almost exactly 14 days, 13 days away from him being off for 3 straight months. And the crazy thing is you're like, oh wow, that's a lot. But he did that in an election year too. So where the highlight of a lot of his humor is political, and he's gone in November, December, January, February. Like, when you're missing the new president coming into office, and you're basically absent for most of his first 100 days, it's I don't know. I love the show, by the way. I love his show. Great humor, good writing. I know they do a tremendous job on research. And again, it is highly politically driven, but their special topic research and reporting that they do is phenomenal. It is considered a comedy show because it's real life reporting with a comedical twist. So I know a lot goes into it. Yeah. No, I've taken time off too. I take time off for my weekly show. But you're not going to see me. I'm not gonna this week after the Super Bowl. You're not gonna see me sign off in November and not hear again till February. That means all the bowl games. That means, the Senior Bowl, Shrine Game, those All-Star games that I cover heavily. It means no Super Bowl, no national championship. The pulse of the NBA, the beginning of the NBA season for most people, Christmas Day, And then you get kind of the pulse of where everything's going to be. Here we are, Thursday's the trade deadline for the NBA. And we're already reaching on the mid-season point. And the All-Star game is in February, where people were really trying to forecast where they're going to be in April. Or May, rather. April, May. Are they still playing in June? Or are they on vacation? And how's the team going to draft? I've always thought it was so odd to me that the NBA, your season literally just ends in June. And then, like 2 weeks later, it's the draft. It's always seems so odd. I think the NBA, they should just start the season in November and have the championship game in August. Start in November, have the championship game in August. So this way over the summer, where the only other thing on is baseball, you have more of a fighting chance. When most of your season is backed up against the NBA, regular season, even college basketball ends in March. So you literally have April, May, June, July, August. And the only thing you would be competing with is baseball. Baseball is such a hyper-local sport. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't do that. So, yeah, it's that and the NHL. Yeah, there's the NHL too. But again, NHL, just like Major League Baseball, is a very localized sport. It's a local sport. So, but as far as, like I said, even just kind of going back to the Super Bowl, I thought they were kind of lacking this year in creativity as far as the Super Bowl commercials go. I know a lot of companies have been bailing on the Super Bowl. Again, with the ratings being down, the worst ratings in 10 years, in a decade. That's like halfway through Brady's career so far. Yeah, the 19 years. 19 years. And he's played in half of the Super Bowls in that time. He's won 6. It's, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal what the Patriots have done. But this is a very defensive centric or strong Super Bowl. Both teams showed up really well. Well, I mean, when you're going to the fourth quarter, there's only 3 points. You're doing something right as a team and on the defensive side. But on the offensive side, you're doing something very wrong. So, here's what happened. Going into the fourth quarter, tied 3-3. McDaniels pulls the offense to the side. And he told them, he said, hey, listen, Everything that we had practiced and done up to this point, we're throwing all of that out the window. This is in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And Josh McDaniels says, we're throwing that out the window. This is what we're doing moving forward. We want to keep the LA Rams in their base defense. We don't want them going into nickel. Because we feel like we had the best matchups in their base defense. So they changed things up. The personnel changed up a bit. That's why you started seeing Edelman one side wide, Burkhead on the other side. And Gronk in the slot. And really mixed it up where guys were and spread it out a bit more. So they were forcing the Rams to play a linebacker on Gronk, a safety on Marcus Peters on Burkhead, So they weren't able to. They pushed them, their hand, and got them to where they were playing more base because they felt they had the better matchups, and that's what they did. That's how they got to the point to where they get Gronk out on kind of a little hitch route. Brady was not phenomenal. Brady wasn't much better than Goff. But what happened is when he needed Gronk and Edelman to make catches, he did. When he needed Burkhead to run routes and pick up a long rush, he did. It was the few little things over the course of the game that was enough to get him in. Brady threw 0 touchdowns. Tom Brady threw more interceptions than touchdowns in this game. More interceptions than touchdowns. And people say, well, why wasn't he the MVP? Let's give it to Edelman. Edelman had 10 catches, 143 yards. No touchdowns. He had no touchdowns, but he was the MVP. The only touchdown of the game was a rushing touchdown by Sony Michel. And it was the same rushing play that Burkhead ran the week before to get the win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Just happened to be in Sony Michel's hands. And the key to that play, a lot like last week, was the fullback. And I heard, who was it that kind of made... You'll see a lot of times where, an industry or culture or something moves and shifts. And it can shift away from what you're good at. Like, for example, Sports Illustrated. They were one of the top in sports media for a very long time. But they underestimated the internet, and they underinvested in publishing online and moving to digital. And they fell behind. And they've had to make tremendous amount of cuts as far as staff goes. I think I'm one of the few people that actually still get a subscription. Although it doesn't hardly show on I'm supposed to get it every Thursday. Sometimes I get it Thursday. Most of the time it's on Friday. Often on Saturday. And there's sometimes I never get it. Is that their fault or was that the post office? I don't know. I think it's more the post office. But they didn't adapt and they fell behind. They fell off. That's where companies like Bleacher Report came in and took over. Because Bleacher Report did something that was really unique. They said, why produce all of our content? We can just be an aggregate for other sites as well. This way we know we always can provide somebody a story. And then, on top of that, have original content as well. Well, what that does is make them very relevant when it comes to search engine optimization. Because if the content that is trending is consistently available to your site or your app, search engines are going to push people to go to your site or your app. So, they were ahead of it. Another guy, Steve Carell, long time part of the Daily Show. Or John Colbert, sorry, Steve Carell. Colbert, who had the Colbert Report on Comedy Central for a while, which was his version of the Daily Show, which I thought was good. I thought it was much needed. And then when Jon Stewart retired, there was really never another show outside the Daily Show on Comedy Central that could really fill those shows and provide what the Daily Show had on Comedy Central, at least. So for about 6-8 months, Colbert, been the host of. Let's just go. Pull that back. Yeah. It's been a late night show. The Tonight Show. For, what is it, 6 to 8 months. He was been the host, and his ratings just were terrible. And they were looking at canning him as the host of The Late Show. Because he filled in the shoes after David Letterman. And they said he was too political. Which, then the election cycle came around. Clinton, Trump, mainly Trump. The swing for his type of humor became more popular. And overnight, the ratings skyrocket. So being with trends is helpful. Sometimes you fall into some dumb luck of those trends, like John Colbert. Sometimes you just the right place at the right time in history, like Bleacher Report. And sometimes you take a hit and never really rebound like you once did, like Sports Illustrated. And people keep saying, Tom Brady, he's going to retire. The way that the league has moved, and I've given this some thought because I've had a lot of people ask me lately, is he the greatest? Is he the greatest? Do you think, this is the biggest accomplishment? It's clearly a stellar accomplishment to have 6 Super Bowls. But the other guys that have 5, 4, those guys pretty much all did it in 5 or 4 runs at it. Like, when you say Bradshaw, when you say Montana, they didn't lose any Super Bowls. None. And then they try to bring in Jordan. Listen, don't compare a basketball player to a football player. Just can't compare it. And even if you want to use Jordan, he went to 6 finals. He won 6 finals. And he was the finals MVP 6 times. 6 for 6. Don't even go there with it. Right? It's, it's comical to get into that. But for him to retire now doesn't make any sense. More and more guys are just going to start to retire when they don't feel like they can do the practice anymore. and the game planning anymore. Because I guarantee Brett Favre could go out there and spin the football and play in the game all week long. It's the practice. It's the training. It's the meetings. It's the game planning, you know? It's the time and energy and mental strength and stability you have to put into day in and day out, year round. Trying to get better in the off season, to be even better during the season, you know, all while trying to save up enough energy for a postseason. It's tricky. How do you expend so much time and energy in the off season, regular season, that when it matters the most in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, that you're at your peak health? It's an impossibility. I think these two teams were remarkably fortunate that they weren't having to overcome so much adversity in the department of injuries this season. But in a time, so like the greatest show on turf, that Rams team, the last time they were in the Super Bowl, was it 17 years ago? 17 years ago? They played against Tom Brady and the Patriots, right? And they lost. But even that team, I think that team is greater than what you see now. Because then, and those 49er teams with Jerry Rice, get out of here. Those teams, you had to overcome the grabbing and holding and hand checking. And you could play physically. The fact that they were able to spread that offensive out and score as many points as they did was phenomenal. And the teams that you see since the Patriots, like the last NFL dynasty to really, really do it was with an owner, a head coach, and a quarterback, was the decade of Montana, Walsh, and DeBartolo in San Francisco. That was the last time that was done. And really, I mean, you've had the Packers, the Steelers, and the Niners. Those are the only other three franchises that have had these type of dynasties. There's been other teams that have had some good teams, maybe won a couple here and there, but not even the Cowboys. The Cowboys were good for a period. They won 2 titles, but they were good for a period. You know? It wasn't that decade-long run. And it was with multiple coaches, too. So, the 4 greatest greatest dynasties in NFL history are the Patriots, the 49ers, Steelers, and the Green Bay Packers. No one else has been able to consistently do it over long periods of time like that. Don't get me wrong, Dallas was, I'm saying, you Cowboys fans getting at me right now. Dallas did it right for a good amount of time. For a good period. Okay. Thank you for correcting me on Cowboys championships. I wouldn't expect any less of you Cowboys fans. I appreciate it. Truly, I do. I truly do. Why? When the game has gotten easier and your game plan and your ability is to be able to play and not get hit or minimize how much you get hit, why would you stop? Why? You know? Pro athletes stop generally for two reasons. One, they have lost interest and passion for the game. Or two, their body has lost passion and interest for the game. People keep asking, is Gronkowski coming back for another year? Is he going to get back? Is he going to be back? I'm telling you, Gronk will be back for one more year. Next year will be Gronkowski's last year. It will be his last year. And like this year, he's not going to be there for OTAs. He's going to miss out on part of camp. And the way he's used during the season will be sparse. But when we get to the playoffs, they'll have those situations dialed up just for him. I have some people telling me that this year in the draft that the Patriots are going to angle for a quarterback to replace Brady in 3 years or whatever. Some have told me they may have interest in Kyler Murray. Do we have that interview? The Dan Patrick interview? Can you get that for me? I wanted to play that. Yeah, they had what might have been one of the worst interviews. And again, the Dan Patrick doesn't have many bad interviews. And this was just terrible. Yeah, pull that audio for me. Let me know when you have it.
I'm not trying to bait you to make a decision.
All right. You got that? All right. Well, let me know when you got it. I got to do the show. Here, keep going with the show. I don't know. All right. So, So he had a bad interview. I'll find that. We'll get that for you here shortly. And I'll play it for you. But, that's the thing, is it's going to be tough. I think Kyler Murray this year may be the bait that a lot of front offices are going to use. I think John Gruden is a big one of those factors, or participants rather, in baiting. He has said that I'm throwing out everything, because he said, I used to have a prototypical size, hand size, yada, yada, yada. And he has since thrown all that out the window.
How's that NFL football feel?
And now he's largely in to Kyler Murray. A guy like Kyler Murray. And I'm waiting for it. I don't see it. Exactly the kind of guy that he would look at. Because he's dynamic. He used to have a height requirement. He doesn't have any hand size requirement. But I think he's selling a lot of people a bill of goods here. It's up there? All right. I will check for it here real quick. That he's selling a lot of people a bill of goods on Kyler Murray being his type now, to try to bait people into moving up in the draft to take him off the board, or to trade away a draft pick that they have. So I got that audio. Let's go ahead and pull it. I think we're okay. So this was on the Dan Patrick Show this week. Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy winner, NFL prospect. Dan is great at interviewing people. Really good. And check out Kyler Murray's reaction to these are some softball questions, by the way.
How's that NFL football feel? I'm not trying to bait you to make a decision. I just want to know how that felt. It's different than a college football.
It needs to be broken
A little bit?
Yeah.
All right.
A lot more.
Well, you can do that your rookie year. Wait, are we not going to get along here if I do this? I want to make sure.
Yeah, we should do that.
Okay, all right.
We can do it.
You don't have to make a decision. Are you having fun with this
I'm
at all?
having a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun.
I couldn't tell.
Oh, no, don't worry. I'm having a lot of fun.
Okay, well, let me try this again. Hey, what did you think of that NFL football? Oakland Raiders draft you, let's say. Just hypothetical.
Well, I heard what Russ said over the phone. Saying that he would, he's with the Yankees, so he'd have to play for like the Giants or the Jets to be able to do it.
Yeah. If the Raiders drafted you,
yes,
would that change anything about trying to play both?
In my head, I would love, like I already said, I would love to play both. I think that's just up to that'd be up to the Raiders and the A's.
Who do you think would have a bigger problem?
The Raiders, probably.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
John Gruden likes you, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Have you talked? Have you talked to John Gruden?
I've not talked to John Gruden.
Okay.
I've never met him actually.
Paul, bring out John Gruden here. Yeah, they said hello to John Gruden.
I was like, whoa.
What would you do if he came out?
Probably dap him up, give him a hug.
That's it. That's it.
Keep it cordial.
Are you going to the combine?
I don't know.
Well, wait. Dad, is he going to the combine? Dad had no comment there. Pro day?
I mean, that's after the combine.
Yeah, you're going to do a pro day? Yeah? Yeah.
I guess. If you want to say yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. You can have a pro day. But instead
that would imply that I was going to play football.
Okay. So you're going to have a pro day? When do you report for the Oakland A's?
February 16th.
Oh, you knew that. Okay. So you're ready to go to do that. Wait, are you going to spring training?
I don't know.
Wait, you don't know? Dad, is he going to spring training? Another no comment here. You know these microphones are on right now.
Yeah, I know.
I just said. All right. How tough is it that you're doing this with Gatorade, but you know every place you go is going to ask you the same questions?
I'm getting pretty good at answering, these questions.
No, you're not answering them.
Well, exactly.
You're shaking me off here.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm trying to tackle you.
No, yeah, everybody keeps asking the same questions.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they'll soon be answered. So.
And you know what? How long was it before I brought up the following? I didn't ask about his height.
11 minutes in, you didn't bring it up.
So that's got to be a record, right?
I was told you were going to be pretty harsh. So.
Harsh?
Yes.
No, I'm just straight. I'm just honest.
I like that.
I'm coming right at you.
I like that.
Yeah, that's it.
No doubt.
So your official height and weight?
I don't know the official. I mean, I don't wake up and just measure myself.
Have you been measured before?
The last I recall was my freshman year at A&M.
Okay.
But
have you grown since then?
Low key, I think so.
Little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So you're under 6 feet.
For sure.
You look about the size. Russell Wilson was in here, and and I'm in your corner. Like when I hear these scouts say, "Well, you got to be a certain height and all that stuff," I just want to know if you know football, love football. So Oklahoma's linemen are as big as the NFL linemen.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't get the whole nobody can steal over offensive line. So.
Yeah, you seem to do okay.
Yeah.
Breeze did okay.
Yeah, he did.
Baker Mayfield
he's still doing okay.
Yeah, he's still doing okay.
Yeah.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan.
Great job of those. Think of how much it takes for Dan Patrick to kind of be reserved in his remark of where Murray responds to, everybody's asking the questions and I'm getting better at answering them. He said simply, you're not answering the questions. I mean, he could have went and beat him up about it and really said, hey, you're giving me nothing here. I'm trying to make the best of this, but you're giving me nothing here. And that's one of the tough things about booking guests. Because, we do guests on this show. I don't do a ton of guests. it's usually just me and Kevin and one or two other people. We could do, well, like I said, we do 3 straight hours of no commercial interruption. Your radio guys, the TV guys, they got a break every 10 to 12 and a half minutes for 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes it pushes closer to 10. They have breaks. So over the course of their 3-hour show, at most they have like an hour and a half of content. You don't believe me? Go look at the podcast. Go pull the podcasts. Tell me how many of the shows, when you go to listen to the full show, are 3 hours. And even those that are saying like 2 hours and something, or, you still have commercials on the podcasted version of the full show. They can really dumb down the show into 45 minutes. That's how they can do the best of. The best of is pretty much the whole damn show without commercials. And then on top of that, they book guests. When shows book guests, it's not because they're lazy. I'm not saying some of them aren't. But it's because they want that content for the listeners. They're adding a different perspective. As much as I'd love to sit here and run my mouth all damn night, if I could get somebody that's more articulated on the subject, or has a different or unique perspective than I do, I want to have them on. But sometimes you just get interviews, it's just either putting people to sleep, or you have to dig too much in to interview. Like, you try to have an interview be a conversation. And you heard Dan Patrick trying to make a conversation out of it, kind of in a joking way, getting Dad involved, because he doesn't want dead air. And he joked about it. He's like, the mics are on, right? It's not like you're just sitting in a green room or somewhere just BSing around. We're doing a show here. Now, I think the people around Kyler Murray, and I'll get Kevin's take on this here in a minute. I think the people around Kyler Murray have been overly cautious because they don't want to tip their hand at all. But the NFL is a very unforgiving creature in some sense. And if you are not uberly talented, like cannot pass on you talent, they will. And you will drop. And the money you would have had will be lost. He already has the deal with the A's. There is really no harm in him saying that I'm interested in playing in football. I will go to the combine, even if I don't throw, at least for interviews. I'll do select stuff on my pro day and more interviews and a couple workouts here and there to places that he wants to go to. Teams that are interested in him in the first round. If I was his agent, that's what I would push for. But saying it, I don't know if I'm doing a pro day or, just... He seems unconfident and lost. That's what he just comes off as like... It's like, What do you know? Why are you here? I'm sure that's how Dan Patrick felt. He's like, thanks for coming by, but why? Why are you here? Because Gatorade's paying you to be here? Like, he didn't even plug Gatorade. Dan Patrick plugged Gatorade. You understand? This is what teams are looking at. What am I getting? A guy that doesn't know if he wants to play football or baseball. He wants to kind of do both. Doesn't want to be forthcoming. Seems unsure and unconfident. Can't remember to mention who's paying for him to be there to mention them. Can't answer these simple softball questions. Again, Dan Patrick goes directly at people. They say he's harsh. And he said it's not that. He's not harsh. He's direct. He's going to ask you real questions in a concise way that leaves you, again, open-ended. He asks open-ended questions because he wants an answer that is your own doing. A lot of people ask questions that are leading. Like saying, do you feel good? Like he asked some leading questions. Are you going to have... Are you going to the combine? Or you are going to have a pro day. He suggested you are doing this, right? Nothing. So, but let me bring on Kevin Kress, my co-host, author of the P.K. Frazier novel series. And I know he probably heard this interview. So, how you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Sorry for calling a bit late. I got caught up in some stuff. But, yeah, I watch Dan Patrick's show almost every day. I think Dan Patrick is the consummate interviewer among talk shows, among sports talk.